Hi everyone. This video is going to be an overview on the lower body flexibility portion for this week. The first exercise is a wall butterfly stretch. So you will need a bare space of a wall that is wide enough for you. A little bit wider than hips should be fine as long as you don't got stuff on either side. What you're going to do is you're going to get down on the ground and sit, and then you're going to take the very bottom part of your pelvis, as low as you can think about in your pelvis, and then push that up against the wall. Really smack it in there, because that's going to set you for all of the rest of the stuff for this, so it's very important. And then you bring your head up, so you touch the wall, you're extending your head, getting as high as you can up here. One foot comes in, the other foot comes in, and you just kind of shimmy back and forth until you set in your butterfly position. Now here, you might feel like, oh, my pelvis shifted a little bit, so you can just shift it back in again. And then from this position, keeping yourself extended up real high, you're going to just gently think about pulling your knees down. So you want to think about firing that outside edge of your glutes, getting into that point of tension in the groin, and then you can take your hands and just gently weight down and breathe. Try and keep the head extended up, that low point of your pelvis touching the bottom edge of the wall. And then you sit here, nice good groin stretch, you comfortably breathe. When you feel like you want to come out of this, you take your hands on the outside of your knees, you pull up, and then you shimmy off the wall. I'm not really going to say any particular time for that one because it is just a really nice stretch. It helps with your spinal alignment. It helps with your hip positioning. So basically that one is as long as you want to sit there. I find it really helpful to meditate in that position, because then you can just kind of check out of the groin stretch and sit there and be nice and comfy. So the next up is a couch stretch. It's kind of like a misnomer because you typically do it up against the wall. I believe it's the name of the person who created it. You can do this against the couch, not as effective. So you need something for your knee, blanket, pillow, roll up yoga mat, just some form of cushioning, because what you're going to be doing is coming down to the ground, and you're going to take that knee and put it far up. Oops, I'm going to flip that around. As far up to the edge of the wall as you can, and your foot goes up the wall. Now from this position, you want to think about checking in with the back foot. You bring your heel inwards slightly. So you're making sure that's that nice straight line. Can't really see that, sorry. And then you're going to walk that other leg nice and forwards. You're pushing this hip back, and you kind of brace up a little bit. Now, this position right here probably will be a very intensive stretch position if you don't do a lot of hip flexor work, because this is a very tensioned position on all of the tissue that make up your lower kinetic chain. You want to be able to squeeze your glutes here, so consciously tightening and firing up that muscle. If you cannot get that, then lean forwards more until you can, right? And that's what is going to be the cueing for how far you go with this. You got to maintain that glute tension. So if you can squeeze it here and you're like, okay, I can access that, cool. Come up to the knee. Okay, you can access it there, right? And then what you do from this position is you think about pushing that hip forwards, right? It's not about coming up, it's pushing that hip forwards. It's going to increase that line of tension. And then again, can you squeeze the glute, right? And just consciously tighten and hold. And once you're going to find a point where you're like, ooh, I can't really squeeze anymore. So you come back a little bit, get that tension in there, and then that's where you're going to hold. And you just sit there, nice calm breathing, and use that exhale, squeeze even harder. So you really build up that tension in the quad and the hip flexor. So you should feel it kind of from the tie of the hip all the way down to your knee, maybe in the foot and ankle, because it's up on the wall in the stretch position, if that's not something you stretch very often. Next up, I'm going to do some work with a chair. So the first one is a chair forward fold. You're going to sit in your chair with your knees wider than your rib cage. Right, so that is your cueing position on here. What you're going to do here is extend your head up as tall as you can. So your abs are nice and engaged. Then you're going to lean forwards and reach down and try and put your hands on the ground. If you cannot get your hands to the ground, use some kind of object, a box, just, something that you can put your weight onto a little bit so you can assist you into this position. What you're going to do here is just continue to try to lean forwards, thinking about keeping your low back arched, and you're trying to move with rotating your pelvis. So there's nice, comfortable breathing, and at some point you feel like, okay, my pelvis is totally locked, then you can let your head relax down. Really apply that weight. If your chair starts to roll forwards, just make sure you're scooched back a little bit. So you're going to feel this one primarily in the hip flexors, in your pelvis, maybe in the low back a little bit. And you want to, as you're coming down, right? If you're getting into this position, you're like, oh, this is super fine. You can extend your legs. So you're not trying to necessarily widen your legs. You're trying to extend them so you're getting your heel further out. That will increase that hip flexor stretch and essentially progress you into what is known as a pancake. It is a form of splits. That's it's not really in that realm, but it is a way to move into that position, get those tissues stretched. Again, anytime you're in an inversion, make sure you're breathing because that's important. Last up, and this is a kind of awkward modification for this, again, because I do not have easy access to filming my bed. This is a movement primarily done on beds, couches, any kind of stable, large surface. I would not recommend trying this on a chair, but we will see how this goes. What you're going to be doing is a hip flexor stretch. So you're going to lay down on the edge of your surface. I'm going to do this kind of tabletop brace because this is the easiest way to get this. And you're going to get the hip you're working on off the edge of the surface. The other leg kind of comes up. You put your heel nice and close to your hips. And then from here, you have that leg extended, and you're trying to think about letting your leg go down further. Now, if you can comfortably put your heel on the ground in whatever surface you're on, right? It kind of depends on the height of that surface. Then what you're going to do is walk your foot back, so you're up on your toes, walking your foot back so that your knee sinks further down, and then you try and drop the heel. Again, this side of your pelvis is off the surface, and you're just trying to let that sink down. If you want to, you can squeeze that knee to your chest. So we kind of like this. You're squeezing that knee down as this leg is kind of walking back. Okay, that works. And that it'll make that stretch more intensive. You do not have to hold that leg. It's just a way to kind of increase that tension you're putting on your tissues. Yeah, again, bed is much nicer because you have head support and you can relax that upper body. If you do not have something that you feel comfortable doing that, you can try it on a chair in that position I just did with either the hands down, or if your chair is long enough and you're comfortable in your abs, you can do this version, which actually worked really effectively. But then you're more likely to just build up some unnecessary tension in the neck. So larger surface is preferred. Last up, you're going to do some deep squat work. So if you're still working on your deep squat, then again, you're going to continue using that object that you've been using. So either door frame, door, chair, couch, whatever it is. What we're going to do this time is some ankle work. So you're going to get in your starting position, which is standing up. Abs engaged, glutes engaged. Using that surface, you're going to sink it down as far as you can, right? That's right. Chairs don't work for this. Never mind. I gotta get my door. Don't use a chair for the deep squat. I said that last time. I forgot myself. That's why you don't use a chair for that, because there's no force to pull against. You will just tip it over. So, the door is much more secure. So, right, you're holding that, you sink down, getting in that lean back position so that you can maintain your upright posture. What we're going to do here is you're going to try to push your knees forwards, keeping them spread slightly apart until you feel real strong stretch in your ankles. Right? And you're just going to keep pushing the knees forwards, trying to keep your heel on the ground, driving forwards, and then eventually you feel potentially a point at which you can come off of the door, or if you want to, if you're using a door, you can kind of come to the door and just pull yourself forwards. So you're really trying to increase that range there. If you are comfortable with your deep squat, it's basically the same exact thing. You're going to squat down, but with this one, it's a little bit easier to put more weight into it, because all you got to do is just lean forwards and you're reaching your hands as far as you can forwards. You want to make sure your knees are narrow enough that you're resting your torso on them, and then you just reach forwards. Really focus on keeping the weight down on the heel and leaning into that stretch in the ankles. This one is a little bit intense for a static stretch. So if you notice that you start to get a lot of fatigue in the shins, which can happen, shift out of that and come out of the squat. Take a little breather, go back into it, try and put those tissues on attention again, because that kind of range only develops with time, with putting yourself into that position and working on making it a comfortable position for your body to be in. So you have to just kind of invest in the time to make that position doable. So that is it for the lower body flexibility. These are all really nice exercises, movements. These are really nice movements. Should have opened a lot in that hip flexor range on the couch and the leg drop chair thing. What did I call it? I don't remember what I called that right now. Sorry. Oh man. Okay. Have fun with those.